What do you think aliens look like? Green-skinned with magnified eyes, right? We have been conditioned to perceive aliens this way. We don't know them, yet we're sure that that's how they look like. And this is the same situation for certain Homo sapien races. Despite being the largest racial group in the world, Asians are the least represented in the Western media. And when we do appear in the media, we see some underlying patterns. Think of some social roles that Asians always seem to occupy. Did you name the Kung Fu master, the math genius, the dragon lady, the foreigner who doesn't speak English or speaks English and in an over-the-top accent? Don't get me wrong, some of these cliches are not incorrect nor offensive. What is offensive, however, is that they have been repeated too often and in all kinds of media, from memes to Hollywood films to global TV channels. There's a lack of understanding of the multi-dimensional people and their colorful and vivid culture. The human brain is lazy. It hates having to remote thinking and to confront new things. That's why when we have formed an image of what Asians look like in our brain, it transforms into an image of how Asians should look like. Why is that important? Because we'll not be interested in looking past the preconceived image, looking beyond the superficial understandings. We'll not be able to truly know Asia, let alone appreciate it. We would think it's alien and therefore weird. And to some, this weirdness pushes them to make fun of it, as if to comfort themselves over the discomfort it brings. This kind of fixed and biased way of thinking has real and serious consequences. Southeastern Asians being spat on, Asian shops being vandalized, people getting hurt and dying. To Asians and Asian-looking people in the West, there is a virus that is far more dangerous than the COVID-19. There's an alarming level of hate crimes against us, but why are we surprised when haters don't differentiate and don't care to differentiate if we're X, Y, or Z? When they try to minimize us and reduce us into one entity, even though we represent 48 different countries and 2,300 languages spoken. Much of this kind of reaction is due to the lack of exposure, lack of accurate exposure to Eastern cultures. That's why I want to use this stage to introduce a key aspect of Chinese culture, Asian culture that I know the best, and it is Beijing Opera. Beijing Opera is a quintessence of Chinese culture, an embodiment of many other aspects of our tradition, from music, language, visual art, martial art, and you name it. The stories of the plays mainly come from fairy tales, classical literature, or important historical events from previous dynasties, dating to thousands of years ago. One classic, by the way, is the so-called Chinese version of Romeo and Juliet, or the Butterfly Lovers. So, there are all kinds of characters, men and women, humans and gods, spirits and demons, but they all belong to 4 main character types: 生旦净丑, or males, females, males with painted faces, and clowns. Beijing Opera is probably most famous for its masks, but actually their makeup on the face. Just like other parts of costume, it is symbolic and exaggerates a character's personality so that it's visually easier for the audience to tell at first glance. For example, a red makeup is for someone who is courageous, loyal and virtuous, black for those who show integrity, and white for those who are suspicious and scheming. Instead, in the West, perhaps from a historical or racial standpoint, red implies danger, black evil, and white purity. Also radically different from Western theater, Beijing opera consists of much more than singing, but rather 4 fundamental skills, or singing, reciting, acting, and performing acrobatics. This is what's amazing about Beijing opera. It harmoniously integrates multiple art forms as one, while preserving each art form's uniqueness and value. The costumes in Beijing opera are artistic exaggerations of the traditional clothing from Ming and Qing dynasty. The embroideries on the gowns are mainly handcrafted with traditional patterns, like cranes for long life, peonies for wealth, and dragons for royal power. Incorporating these symbols, Beijing opera costumes are of a high aesthetic and cultural value. Something that I find representative of Beijing opera costumes is the long flowy silk sleeves, or water sleeves. They're like extended hand gestures that help to convey a character's joy, shock, anger, and more through specialized movements. They really show that Beijing opera costumes are much more than costumes, but a part of the performance. No matter if it be an imperial court, a study room, or the god's palace, Beijing opera can create any atmosphere with minimal amounts of props and actors. They rely on highly abstracted and non-existent objects. One special prop is the horsewhip. This simple stick gives the actors endless freedom of performance. With one raise of hand, the horse would have galloped hundreds of miles. With another, it would have been taken away to the stable, and to mimic how one tries to tame a wild horse, the actor would hold his stick and give several consecutive splits. And finally, the makeup is something that probably immediately stands out in Beijing opera, right? One crucial detail is the use of tape to bring the eyebrows up so that the actor's eyes look more energetic, giving off a piercing and powerful look. There's a saying in Beijing opera called 1 minute on stage, 10 years off stage. From what I've talked about, you can probably get an idea of the countless amounts of things to learn and details to master. And of course, the same goes for any performance. I know that Beijing opera consists of only a part of Chinese culture, let alone the extensive and diverse Asian cultures. I know that no one can become an expert in another culture just with this one presentation. But hasn't this already proved to you that there is so much more to an Asian than being the math genius or the Kung Fu Panda? My brief introduction is just a sneak peek into Asia, a snippet that will hopefully evoke your interest. Because the more intrigued we are, the more we want to know. The more we want to know, the more we'll be able to and willing to understand and embrace. Just like how Beijing opera integrates 4 different art forms as one, we can also embrace the thousands of cultures around the world as one culture, the culture of humanity. Thank you.